Hey guys, it's Aang. And today I'm here to talk about a graphic novel that is near and dear to my heart called Amulet. Womp, 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 womp. Womp, womp, womp. Back when I was in elementary school, we would have silent reading period, which would be like an hour or so. My teacher provided like a whole table full of books that we can borrow and take out. And then there was this one book, this one graphic novel that literally like is so close to my heart. And it was called Amulet by Kazu Kibuishi. It's actually a series that is still ongoing. And I think today actually, which is really crazy, today is the 15-year anniversary of this graphic novel series, which makes me feel old. And it was the one book that literally had like the longest lineup. You would see someone in class reading it. You'd go up to them and be like, hey, like, can I borrow this book? They would be like, oh, this person's gonna borrow it after me. So then you have to go to the next person and be like, hey, can I borrow the book? Oh no, this person's gonna be borrowing it after me. So there was always like this long backlog. Once I finally got my hands on it, all the way back in 2008 when this book came out, changed some brain chemistry in my brain for some reason. This book was very important to me. Back when I was in grade 3, I was like 7, 8 years old. I was not a very good reader. I didn't know how to read right. I was always pulled to the side every month for like those little like literacy tests. I kept doing it for a couple years when other students didn't have to. The Amulet was like one of the first books that I really took an interest in. First off, there's a lot of pictures, a lot of illustrations. Secondly, it's really easy to understand. The small like speech bubbles and the illustrations. I remember my sister and I saved money to save up to buy this book. We already read the first two and we want to know the rest of the story. As you can see, it's kind of like, it's really old and like the pages are like kind of worn. During the Scholastic book fairs, we would save money every year to try to buy the new Amulet volume until, you know, I got older. I got money, my own money, and I was able to buy the rest of the series as well as the first two books. Basically, I'm here today to kind of nerd out and talk about the series. I have my little iPad here to tell the story of the beginnings of Amulet. The book was created by the author named Kazu Kibuishi. Kazu is a 4th generation Japanese American. His mother grew up in Brooklyn, but moved to Tokyo for school, then had Kazu in 1978 and his brother in 1979 and moved back to the US in 1981. His great-grandfather opened the oldest Japanese grocery store in the US called Katagiri store in 1907 in New York City, which the store is still open today. The reason why I wanted to include this was because this was like the most freaking coolest fact that I've ever read in my life. It's been over 100 years. It's still there. Katagiri Japanese Grocery. You provided New Yorkers with Japanese groceries. Opened its doors in 1907. Fast delivery. Can they deliver to Toronto? Toothbrush for gum care. If I ever go to New York, maybe I'll go by there and be like, wow. Kazu. After being inspired by Hayao Miyazaki's manga Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Bone by Jeff Smith, Kazu's vision of Amulet began at 19 years old in 1997 as a film and media student in college. I think what's really interesting that Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, I think, was Miyazaki's debut film. I think during the same time that I read Amulet, I was really getting into anime. One of my best friends at the time introduced me to like Princess Mononoke and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which was another one of the first films that I've ever watched by Miyazaki. And I remember like seeing the airships. It kind of reminds me of that, right? So I really do see the influence from Miyazaki's films. For Kazu, back in the day, his little passion project was to create a series that would be good enough to be sold in stores right next to Miyazaki's works, next to Jeff Smith's work. And to me, this is worthy, bro. This is worthy. Kazu made his first attempt at creating Amulet, but felt like the end result was disappointing, considering all of the work he put in and the thought of making more panels as a hobby was not worth it. Amulet was a passion project for Kazu, and it was not something he wanted to do for his career. This was Kazu's actual first attempt at writing and drawing the story. Amulet depicts the early versions of the character Trellis, Trelly the thief, Leon Redbeard, Leod the cat, and a cat named Riley. A few panels of Amelie and Naven were drawn before they go on their journey to Alidia, and Misket is seen as a regular stuffed animal. Amulet, even the logo was different. He even had experience in graphic design. Just basic graphic design, you have to learn a lot about typography. Here it's like very different. It's kind of hard to read as well. I think this is supposed to be Trellis or Trelly the thief. This is Riley, and this one is the beginnings of Leon. For the trouble I caused to get this stone, you better pull through for me, old man. Yeah, you better pull through. You said you'd get
get me a pair of wings so I can be like the other bats. Aw, he's a wingless bat. Aw, he was supposed to be a bat, not like a goblin elf. I may be a bat, but I'm not blind. It really is a mushroom wearing a garment. Misket the bunny. And I'll probably get us both lost. Then Dad'll blame me for the whole thing. Their dad's alive! I can imagine how long this took. A long time. Look at those lines. Look at this inking. This is so pretty, by the way.
It really shows that Amulet is something, you know, that he didn't really want to just make to be popular, to be really successful. It's just something he wanted to do, you know what I mean? For a couple of years, he decided to put Amulet on hold to work on developing more skills for his career. He took on jobs as an architecture graphic designer and a writer and animator in a small animation studio, which I think is super cool as well, because it's just like there's always like a process to get to the end goal, and to get to the end goal, like you don't have to like go there right away. There's always like sometimes life will take you through these little obstacles to make you ready for that end goal. During this time, he pitched an animated movie to Disney called Let's Get Francis, which is a story about a sibling rivalry of hamster brothers stuck in a pet store, which Disney did want to create, but because of the long development process, Kazu had a good feeling he was not going to end up directing the movie. He decided to sell the rights to the movie, left animation, and decided to focus on creating graphic novels. All he really wanted to do was gain storytelling experience. And then after that, he worked on a miniseries called Daisy Kutter: The Last Train, and had a popular webcomic called Copper in 2004. You can see Copper's in the back, and I always really wanted to read it, but I never like knew where to buy it. So a little side story about Daisy Kutter: The Last Train. So basically Daisy Kutter and Copper were like his first comics that he's made that were like published. It all started when he posted art of his OC original character, which was a cowgirl named Daisy Kutter, on an online forum for other cartoonists back in 2003. I was 3. So owner of Viper Comics, which is a small independent publishing company, asked Kazu if he would like to draw and create Daisy's story for their company. So he did, but his original story was only going to be 1 comic book long, but it ended up being 4. Daisy Kutter ended up doing very well, and the success of Daisy Kutter and another series called Flight, which he was an editor for, led him to being able to work for Scholastic, which is where Amulet really began. Daisy Kutter was never finished. It was supposed to be a trilogy, but was paused because Kazu decided to work on Amulet. The story is currently out of print and is very rare to find physical copies of, but is available on his website to read, and he wishes to revisit the story sometime in the future. Which, you know, I was like looking around on their website, and then I saw the frequently asked questions, and one of the questions was, do you plan to make more books after Amulet is done? And Kazu was like, yes. I have been developing a different series for a long time. The project is something I started working on years before Amulet was published, though the project is not quite as old as Amulet, which I think is Daisy Kutter, because the story is out of print, and it's very, very hard to find physical copies in libraries or bookstores. The whole thing is available to read online on his website, so I'll leave it linked down below if you guys want to check it out. Daisy Kutter: The Last Train, and I'm just reading about it right now, and I just love that he put the whole series online for us to read for free. I found on Amazon they were selling like secondhand versions of the comic, so I ordered it. I really wish I can get my hands on a copy, but they have used copies on Amazon, so here's Daisy Kutter: The Last Train. Basically, after gaining experience on graphic novel creation from Daisy Kutter as well as Copper, he decided to try working on Amulet again in 2005. I was 5 years old, bro! He pitched the story to Scholastic, and they agreed to publish the first 2 books. During the creation of the first book, it actually took 2 whole years longer than the original deadline. It would take 3 to 20 drafts of fully drawn and painted scenes to find the perfect one. The best material is often created not by design, but by accident, so I scheduled time to make plenty of mistakes. And I think that's so inspiring. Just learn from it. In the future, because you learned from it in the past, it'll be much faster later on. I love that it's like the best material is often created not by design but by accident. You know, in life sometimes you just do really spontaneous things in life, and sometimes it just really works out. And I don't know what it is. It's like a magic of just doing it in the moment, and I love it. I just really wonder, like, if back then, I know technology has developed, but I don't know if like they had this technology back in 2005. I know now they have like Photoshop, they have Clip Studio, Illustrator. I wonder if like the earlier versions of Amulet was made by hand hand.
So I can kind of assume this is pre-digital era, right? So this is like very pen and ink. You can already see like the little blue sketches that he has.
I can only imagine how long that would take because there's no like undo button. I really wonder the difference between the first book versus now, and how technology has progressed and how that has changed the process of making Amulet has been. I can see the quality of book 1 versus book 8, very different. This is something that I noticed, but it's something that I kind of like loved. It's like it gives a little charm to it, but you know how they draw like the little panels? Sometimes like little like line arts that go over the panels, and I don't know, I just love seeing it. It kind of reminds you that it was like drawn. It was like drawn, you know what I mean? It's not like so perfect, but it's just something that I really loved seeing. Versus when you go to the newest book, Supernova, it's extremely clean. It's very clean. So I kind of wonder like, how has it been starting the series off with pen and ink on paper versus now, which is all probably digital? I wonder what it was like to go through that transition in time, to have a series start before digital art was a thing versus now. Anyways, I talk too much.
This is a comic that he created when he wanted to pitch the story to Scholastic. This is actually right after they escaped I called it an octopus looking dude. As a kid, I loved this part because it's like so squishy, and I was like, oh, these little slugs are so cute. Naven's just like playing with them and like feeding them little leaves. So here, she's like, Naven, get away from those things, because you know the amulet was like, yo, don't let Naven out of her sight. And then Naven's just like, they're harmless, and she's like, how do you know they're not diseased? You could get rabies. And then she's like dragging him away. But then here, Emily is like, Naven, stop playing with those things. And he's like, why? How do you know they're not diseased or something? I can't have you getting sick now. You're no fun, Em. This isn't supposed to be fun. The sooner we get out of here, the better. Oh, and then here's so cute, like the little sluggies started following her. Oh my god. She was like, Naven, what? I can't help it if they want to follow me. It's your fault for feeding them. Like, I feel like if this really like came out in the story, I'd be like, Emily's kind of sassy. Here, she's just like very worried and scared too. While Naven's just like, lately, I'm a child. You're such a grouch, Em. Hehe. It's not funny, Naven. But this part's so cute. Heh. He's just looking at them and walking away. I'm happy that they kind of cut it down a little bit. Trellis came, grabbed the slug, and then just like, he ate it. And like, as a kid when I was reading this, I was like, that's so scary. The scariness of this is much more scary than this is. Here in this, we already know this guy is following them, right? Like, we haven't seen his face yet. It's just like a shadow. And then our first like real look at him is him eating a harmless slug. But you know, like, this was just an idea, and I think this was already like super beautifully written. And I think this was really cool too. I really like this cover thing. It looks very vintage too, and I think it looks really cool. I love that he still kept the logo the same, because I'm in love with this logo. I love it so much. I think it's also interesting how she has like the stick, which I believe doesn't even come out in this part of the story. She gets the stick in the second book, I believe. The amulet is on the stick. I think it's very interesting.
Kazu ended up hiring his first team to create the first book, and the first year was a learning experience where many mistakes were made. When creating Amulet, the story was changed many times during production, but the opening sequence was always the same since the beginning. And then he said, I started to get cold feet about including something so dark and emotionally charged to begin an all ages publication. David Saylor instilled confidence in me that the audience could handle the scene's intensity and asserted that the dramatic sequence would stay intact. I thought that was really funny that he was really like nervous about that. Reading this very dark opening is actually what really got me very intrigued to keep reading. And I think back in the day I was into Inuyasha, Inuyasha, like, very graphic as well. I'm really glad that he had David on his side to reassure him, the kids are gonna get a little scared, a little traumatized about high beams. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
This part of the story was so iconic. The first time I read this as a kid, this part made me so sad. I think it was really scary as a kid, because it's just like, we all kind of experience like driving somewhere with our family, and then like anything can really go wrong. How I learned about the high beams, I'd be in the car with my family, and it's like super late at night, and then like a car would be passing by, and and then they would be like, oh my god, like their high beams are on, I can't see anything. And my brain's like, Amulet, good thing we're not on the cliff. Good thing we're not on a cliff. Even though it slightly traumatized me a little bit.
I'm glad that he was there to help him ease his anxiety about it. Very glad that they kept it in. When Amulet was released, it had low sales and mixed reviews, but David Saylor and his literary agent, Judith Hansen, were confident and encouraged Kazu. Although Amulet was not as popular as his previous works, Amulet did reach the people he wanted it to reach. Readers who were not only new to comics, but were new to reading books of any kind. That, again, when I read that line in the website, I was like, bro, because that was literally me. I was not good at reading books. All my friends, all my classmates were just so amazing at reading, but reading was just not something that was like super easy for me, and Amulet really did help me kind of come out of my shell about reading. And I remember meeting people in high school that read Amulet and bonding over Amulet and how much like we loved the series. Was, I don't know, it was like super cool to do. After Amulet 1 was published, Kazu then married his best friend Amy, who's also a graphic novel artist and writer, and together they created Bolt City's production, a mom and pop shop. Although they work on their own independent stories, they also help each other with each other's art, which is so cool because it's like a power couple. I love that. I love that so much. Only a year later, the second book was published in 2009. Bro, I was 9 years old. Kazu learned so much from creating the first book. Kazu and his team was able to complete the book in way less time, and it became the first Amulet book to become a New York Times bestseller, which is it's so nice and happy ending. I think it kind of reminds you that sometimes life will take you through these obstacles to get to the right place. I think because Kazu was just so passionate about Amulet and its story, because of that passion and that care, I think that's why it ended up doing really well. And you know, the first book, the first thing you always do is always going to be a learning process. I know this is very cliche, but it's like riding a bike. You know, when you get on the bike, not all the time you're gonna be zoom across the road. It's gonna take a few tries to get there, and I think it was really inspiring to see, you know, that he wasn't shy to be like, yeah, you know, the first book didn't do so well, but later on it did, and it's because of all the hard work and all the things that we learned along the way. And I also wanted to read some of the FAQs, which is Amulet going to be made into a movie or show? And Kazu said, several movie production companies have attempted to adapt the series with the support of several major movie studios, which is Warner Bros., which is huge, 20th Century Fox, which is huge, Disney, which is really huge, and the project's never made past the script phase. The rights are back in my possession, and I'm currently considering what to do with them. My focus remains on books, but I would like to see Amulet in motion. And, you know, Amulet, I've always wanted to see it as an anime, and I think there's so many, like, opportunities to do so. There's, like, Line Webtoon, which is a Korean webcomic site, and they've already teamed up with, like, Crunchyroll to get their stuff animated. And Kazu has animation and like directing experience. I'm sure he can do something big about it.
Speaking of animation, I actually made this back in high school when I was first learning how to animate, just for fun, and I used a whole fan dub that I found online for the audio. Since I don't have permission to be using that audio, I will dub this for you guys. Yay! Bleh. If you keep that up, your face will stay that way. I'm trying to cheer up Em. She's making that mopey face again. Hey, don't listen to him, Mom. I'm doing fine. At the time, I really said, if no one's going to animate this graphic novel, I will. So, Kazu, if you need anyone to animate your whole series, I will do it for you.
But I remember a few years ago seeing news that it was going to become a show or a movie, I think. And it was supposed to be live action, I believe. Which, you know, I was not a fan of the whole live action thing. I was like, no, I want to see it animated. The art is so beautiful. It's not just the story, it's like the art too. Like, Kazu works so hard on the art. The lesson learned from, you know, reading all of this is sometimes you have to wait for the right time and place for your dreams to come true. And it's okay to make mistakes. Just learn from them. So I think that's all for today. I just really want to share my little like spiel and ideas and of like what I read online about Amulet. I'll leave links down below on where you can buy the series, as well as Kazu's website, Bolt City's productions. It's just always so inspiring whenever I listen to stories of artists and how they, you know, started from the bottom. He was also an immigrant family growing up, and you know, seeing an Asian American achieve so much and touch so many like lives of like young readers through art and storytelling, I think was really amazing. The story and the process of an idea that a 19-year-old had when he was a youngin in college to becoming what it is now, this amazing series that it has become now and is soon going to be ending. 15 years, man, 15, like that's crazy.
He didn't just jump from being a 19-year-old, like being really inspired by like Hayao Miyazaki and then creating this story. It went from like this to being a graphic designer to being animator to starting up 3 different graphic stories, and then it finally ended up him getting to do Amulet. Really amazing is that the journey didn't really stop there. This was like the real deal beginning of everything, and then after that, this is when he really learned the process of creating a big boy comic.
But yeah, I'm super excited. If you guys want me to do more about Amulet series, I definitely can. I would definitely love to kind of like talk about the different volumes and like do my review on it as well, and my thoughts processed as like a little kid reading this and what I think about it now and like how deep the story is. I also saw like this thing on Twitter, and it was about like the dying comic and graphic novel industry. I was reading the comments about it, and people were saying, yeah, well, it's like dominant for like male audiences. No one wants to read like superhero comics, blah, blah, blah. But it's like there's so many great stories out there. You guys are just not looking at the right places. And I think I'm really lucky to have found Amulet so long ago. It's timeless. Like I read this back when I was 7 or 8, and now I'm like 22. To this day, there are young readers still reading this. It's a female protagonist that like saves her family. But yeah, I think that's all for now. Maybe I will be talking more about Amulet and maybe 9 of the books one day. Also Daisy Kutter as well. But yeah, I think that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out my socials. They're all linked down below, as well as my anime reviews. I've been doing One Piece. Been wanting to do webtoon reviews soon, so definitely check it out. I live stream every now and then, and I think that's all I want to talk about. But yeah, that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.